You know, my addiction had progressed to the point where I'd given up hope on myself that I was ever going to get okay again. And so the risks I was taking with the amount of drugs I was putting in a spoon to have a hit was, and it feels quite, you know, I'm in touch with how sad that feels, because that version of me doesn't feel like the version of me that's sitting here talking to you. But that's where it got to.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Life After Prison with Zach and Jules. Today's guest is Lisa Newman, an addiction recovery coach and founder of Recalibrate Recovery Services. Drawing on her own lived experience of addiction, prison and recovery, Lisa now supports others through one-to-one coaching, sober companionship, breathwork, and holistic wellbeing practices. She blends Eastern and Western approaches to help people rebuild their lives, and she's passionate about breaking the stigma around addiction, relapse, and what recovery really looks like. So welcome to the couch, Lisa Newman.
Thank you.
Thank you for
to be
joining
here.
us.
Yeah, how you doing today?
Good. It's really nice to be down here and being with you and meeting you on this beautiful day in London.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we've actually met a couple of years ago, right?
We did.
At Expert Citizens.
It was an awards ceremony, and you did this incredible talk just before me.
As did you. You followed me, and you was great. You were great too.
Even without my script.
Yeah, and so I know we're in for a good episode. So Lisa, I'm going to go straight in, right?
Sure.
Can you talk to us about what led to you getting involved in offending and eventually ending up in prison?
So I think offending was there from quite a young age, really. I always had a bit of a compulsion towards stealing things from shops and feeling the shame about that, even as a teenager, because I never really needed these things. And I now I understand a bit about trauma and the mental health is that I wasn't particularly happy within myself. And so that was a behavior that might have been already giving me some kind of hit as a young girl. But when it started getting problematic was more later down the line once drugs was involved.
You were talking about there was something missing or you wasn't comfortable with yourself.
Sure.
So was the activities with the criminal stuff or the stealing, was that to replace something or to add something? What was?
I would say it was probably to fill something.
Okay.
When I look back at the younger versions of myself, it feels like there was a bit of a void, an empty hole, an abandonment wound, as we sometimes call it these days.
Do you know what that void was?
Yeah, probably fear. Probably loneliness, probably not really understanding the world and what was going on.
From childhood?
From childhood, yeah, because it was a very, and it is one of the reasons why I talk about coming into platforms like this, is that I came from a well-privileged background, and so I had the outside trappings of what would be a really good life. But going to boarding school at 9 years old from the Far East to this country, I didn't really know. We didn't have the language back then. It was the 80s. You didn't have child psychologists in the school to go, how are you feeling? What's going on? There wasn't any of that.
So did you speak English?
I spoke English, yes, but I was brought up very much with the Asian culture and food and...
So it was like a culture shock.
Well, that's a massive culture
huge.
shock. And also at 8 years old to go straight into a boarding school.
Yeah.
That's a big transition.
With a lot of other young girls who were equally traumatized, not really understanding what was going on. And things were very different then. I don't think boarding school is necessarily the healthiest of environments for people, because you don't have the family system around you and dinner. And not that every family is like that. I get that. I'm just I'm saying that there's a lot that's missing. And now there's this term about boarding school syndrome that when that happens to a lot of people, it now makes sense as to why I went down the road of addiction for me, because things that I should have been frightened of, I didn't feel fear like other people. I would turn it into excitement. And my whole experience of boarding school, when I look back at it, I think I lived in a state of fantasy. Like I thought I was going to find Narnia and I was into superheroes. And I just created this whole reality. So, hello, when drugs come along, when I'm 13 years old, I didn't even ask what they were. I'd just be like, yeah, I'll have some of that.
Then
So,
how did it turn into addiction then?
Quite early. I could feel the fact that I reacted differently to other people when I took substances. Now I'd go back to Hong Kong, was where my parents were, and I'd go back to Hong Kong and I'd be offered different things, whether or not we were smoking it or snorting it, and I would just do it, and it made me feel good. It took me out of reality. Perfect. Give me some more.
So then at what age did it turn from addiction to now I'm committing crime and eventually ending up inside?
So I left school at 16. By the time I was 17, it was the whole, I left school at 1989. So it was the whole party scene and finding fields and raving and ecstasy. And I was always the last one still doing it. And by the end of 1991, I was addicted to heroin, crack. It was seriously problematic. And all those things that I said, oh, well, I'm not as bad as that person because they're injecting, or I'm not where that person is. So I'm kind of all right. And, I think that what happens is that we don't see when we switch into the next level of progression in addiction. And that's what happened to me.
And then what led to you receiving a prison sentence?
Quite a few years later. Because without going into the whole story, I had a chunk of time. And when I mean a chunk of time, I mean I had an experience of going to rehab and then getting clean. I don't always like that word, but it's what we use, is that I was free from the substances. And
what would you prefer instead of clean?
Free.
Okay, free. Okay.
Free.
Yeah.
But I use that term because the recovery world understands that.
Was that I'm guessing it is your decision because you need to want to go to rehab. But
yeah,
what made you kind of, go to rehab and do that?
Was the fact that inside I've always had an ambition and I've always wanted to succeed in life, and I've always been quite creative about ideas, and I care about people and I care about friendships and family. I suppose I have certain core values that I realised that those core values I wasn't being able to stick to, because addiction takes you to dark places and makes you do certain things and hurt the people that you love even when you don't want to. And that's the sad reality, and why a lot of people misunderstand and don't particularly feel that sorry for people with addiction, because we do not great things. And so what led me was that I had a chunk of time, and then I had like 7 years, and then I had a relapse. And in that relapse, it just got progressively worse, and to the point where I wasn't managing to hustle and bustle with the ways and means that we try and find to earn money. And it was getting darker and darker with homelessness and things like that. And I was taking bigger risks, hanging out with more dodgy people. And, that's inevitable. Yeah.
And around what age were you when you ended up inside?
I was 40.
Wow.
I spent my 40th inside.
Oh, you had your 40th?
I had my 40th birthday inside, yeah. So that was 12 years ago.
And at that time, were you still battling with addiction?
Hugely. And in a really dangerous, death-wishy way. You know, my addiction had progressed to the point where I'd given up hope on myself that I was ever going to get okay again. And so the risks I was taking with the amount of drugs I was putting in a spoon to have a hit was, and it feels quite, you know, I'm in touch with how sad that feels, because that version of me doesn't feel like the version of me that's sitting here talking to you. But I that's where it got to, was that I couldn't completely take my life, but I wouldn't have, I would have welcomed that at the same time. And that's a rock and a hard place to be. And I think that by the time I knew that I was potentially going to go to prison, and then that first night, all I can remember was a sense of relief.
When you ended up inside?
That something had taken me away from the chaos that I was in and the darkness.
That's, you know what, it's a kind of like a reoccurring theme on the podcast, that people are somewhat relieved when they end up going inside, because it's almost like
another chance.
It saves you from something that could be potentially worse, or a darker path even.
But it's like prison, as we all know, isn't the place that supports really and saves. So it's like something else wants to be there before that happens. And it's, do you know what, it's crazy to hear that, I don't know if crazy is the right word, but it is, you started so young, and it wasn't until you were 40 that you actually went into prison.
And so then once you're inside and you've got the challenge already of one, navigating prison, but also battling addiction. How does that affect someone's time inside when you've got both of those things going on?
It's a really good question. And I don't know how things have progressed now. I can talk about my experience of back then. But there's funding cuts. There's limitations to the support and help that you can get when you're inside. You might get given a carrots worker who's somebody who specializes in helping you around your addiction, and usually you'd have a methadone script or a Subutex script, and that was my path, and you know, and I went in on a Subutex script, so I was able to stay on that for a period of time. But I knew that I wanted to use my time when I was in there to sort myself out as much as possible, and that was not particularly possible.
Why not?
Not the right support. Every time I'd try and come off, my mental health would be terrible. And at the time there were cuts and limited movement. And at the time the gym was closed down, and that was my biggest resource, was like, get me into my body. Let me just like pound this out and lift some weights and do something to release all of this energy that was coming out of me. There wasn't enough mental interventions that helped me with the reality that started coming up for me when I stopped. And certainly at the time there wasn't that much abstinence-based resources. So there were all things about, I could go to a heroin awareness, crack awareness, safer injecting, and a relapse prevention. I was like, I've got enough awareness of crack and heroin. This is not particularly going to help me.
Yeah, you need something that's going to help me build and move forward, right?
Yeah.
How long did you have inside?
So I spent 18 months in total.
So it's long enough to be able to
access support, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know,
in theory anyway.
Well,
in theory, yeah.
We speak to people who have really like short sentences, and it's really hard to do anything, you know, to get on a course, and actually, you know, it's just super slow in there. And that was actually enough time for you to be able to do something. And
it was, but I was in 4 different prisons.
In 18 months?
again, that's
so the problem with when you're getting moved around and navigating the different systems and then putting the right slips in to get the mental health support team and then sign on to this course, and then I'm doing a course on assertiveness or confidence, and then that stops, or and so it's fragmented and it's not kind of holding you.
Whereas you needed that specifically as well, because I mean, everyone does. We need like some stability in there because it's so unstable and you could go at any point. You could, but for somebody in your position, really, really needs that, because it's life changing.
Yeah.
Was there an additional impact on yourself? What, being in that prison environment, was there anything additionally that affected you?
I think having been to boarding school, I was quite okay with being in an institution. It's like I slipped into the rhythm of movement and meal times and making the most out of being in my cell. And I wasn't a big TV watcher, so I would read a lot, and I was writing, and I really tried to use my time. And in a way, it was around the time when mentally I felt as though I was struggling that I got in touch with the Prison Phoenix Trust. And it was them that reminded me of my love for meditation and yoga and things like that. So that certainly helped. Because then that was consistent. It didn't matter which prison I was in. I had this consistent level of support that was, coming my way.
Does go into prison, because typically the people that we speak to, they end up going to prison when they're younger. So going in at 40, does that have an effect on your identity and your sense of self?
Yeah, it did, because... I went in there with the attitude of, I'm not going to try and morph myself into fit in with everybody, the walking and the talking and changing who I was to bowl around to try. And I just thought, you know what? Yeah, people might take the mick out of the fact that I sound a bit posh and whatever. But I just thought, I need to just stay really true to myself. I knew that I was really fragile. And nobody ends up by genuinely from a right aligned place want to go to prison. Not if you're integrated and mentally okay. People end up there usually with trauma and a load of other reasons. So, yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about your release? So you were released on tag. Were you released on tag?
Yeah, so initially... So that's why it was 18 months. So initially I was released on tag, and then I broke a tag condition, and then I had to go and do the rest of that year. But when I was released, the day I was released, I was being sent to an area in London because it was the only place that would have some kind of supported housing. Because the problem with a lot of people, and you do this show and you probably hear it time and time again, one of the things that's stacked against people is that they go back to the area, no matter how much they have the intention to not want to go back to the same behaviors or people, it's there because there's not enough help and support. So even if, and the majority of us are leaving without a home. And that was my case. I didn't have a home. Yes, I kind of had family, but they were arm's length. We don't really want you back in the area. And so on the day that I was released, I was being sent to Stratford in London. Never lived there before. And I had 3 triage appointments. Now, if you know anything about a triage appointment, it's a hardcore, ask you as many questions as you can. Just fire away these questions about all of your life, everything, quite traumatic questions like, have you experienced this and have you experienced that? And as a woman, a lot of these are like, yes. And then the next question. So I had 3 of these and check in with a probation officer or something. And I arrive at the house and there was drug activity going on outside and paraphernalia on the floor. And I thought, I cannot stay here. I cannot stay here, because I had the intention to want to turn my life around.
But that's not a suitable environment.
It's not a suitable environment. And when you come out of prison, even noise of the road, and you guys
so
know.
hard, isn't it? You're literally gone through so much trauma. It's traumatizing getting out. And then you've basically got all the dangling carrots in front of you. It's just frustrating.
Yeah. And that's the thing that makes me quite sad, is that there's been all these amazing CICs or charities or organizations that have set themselves up to try and bridge that gap of the through the gate work that is so essential for so many people for a multitude of reasons, not just addiction. And yet, because of funding and because it's so hard for them to get fundraise or whatever, so many of them have had to close down. And it makes me really sad. There wasn't anything like that at the time for me, because I didn't tick certain boxes, like I didn't have children.
So you didn't have any choice about where you were placed to go?
No, but thankfully I did have my mother with me.
Okay.
Nice.
And she said, even I would use drugs if I had to live here. So she said, look, let's just go back to Bath. And so I had a period of time where thankfully I could stay with them for a bit, and I managed to get a little job where I was waitressing, where I didn't have to disclose any criminal conviction. Nobody knew. I didn't have to speak about where I was. And yeah, I was feeling, I almost felt as though I had no skin on my body because I was so sensitive with being out in the real world. And like we were alluding to, the importance of safety when you're inside, that's just as important when you're coming outside. You kind of want that rooting and stability that people don't always have the choice to be able to have that. And I was fortunate that was available to me, but that was hard for family to take that risk as well. And I get that that's the case for a lot of other people,
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem. It's a big problem that we speak to loads of people about. How did that go for you then, through this license journey?
Yeah. It was rocky, and there were challenges along the way, and I did end up by returning to using drugs for a period of time. But I think that because there was this absolute determination and drive in me to, no matter how messy it was, I was going to try again and again.
So what support? So you did go back into prison on license because, lack of support, right? Maybe, exactly what you spoke about, being in that environment anyway and having to go back with, to Bath. What do you think you needed at that point of being released, not to go back in and to kind of get you on the right path straight away?
Other people that had navigated that, which is why I'm a big advocate for lived experience groups and peer support and other people who were there to inspire me that, you know what, you can do this. You can do this. And I did my best with getting involved with groups. And I remember getting linked up with Revolving Doors. And I just knew I wanted to use that energy in the right way. And I carried on with engagement with Prison Phoenix Trust. The woman that wrote to me was still writing to me afterwards. And I got involved in local drug services and anything that was available, even if they had a little gardening group or a creative group. I needed to be doing something.
And did that help?
Day. Yeah.
So they helped.
Yeah.
But you just didn't have that kind of like the added stuff that you mentioned. How easy do you think, or how easy would you say it is to breach your license without the support?
So easy. So easy. I mean, that's the sad reality of, being inside. You see far too many people who are back in because they've breached their license, and sometimes over something which is not always the best of reasons, or I think not necessarily always a justified reason to be going back. If somebody has breached their license because they've had a slip or they've used drugs, then rather than sending them back for a year, what other community support can we put in place?
Because you're basically putting somebody who's slipped up and made a bad decision or the wrong decision into an environment where they're just not getting support again, and it just doesn't make any sense.
It's counterintuitive.
It amazes me how illogical some of this stuff is. And I just think, oh my goodness, if only, and I get why, because it doesn't get the votes, does it? It just doesn't get the votes to be supporting that stuff. But and there is more of that. I know with the female offender strategy and some of the things I've been involved with APPG groups is that there is more of that. But we've still got a long way to go.
Look, there are so many people doing incredible work out there, but fundamentally the structure and what's put in place is still not working. And you're right with the votes thing. This is a whole nother topic.
I know.
Trust me. We could chat for time.
But that's exactly why these conversations are so important and also so needed right now more than ever, because we are talking about it a lot more. And we just got to keep talking. But I wanted to ask you about mental health, because the support that you get inside and support that you get outside, can you talk to us about that, if there are any, and did it help you?
Oh, it's such a hard question to answer, because the sad truth is that it's not particularly good. We're in a crisis, I think, when it comes to mental health, because
for a while now.
For a long while, and this was 12 plus years ago, and I did eventually get somebody who was going to be my support for my mental health when I was in there, but I'd get to see them once a month if they didn't cancel. So once a month, and it was quite formulaic in terms of how are you sleeping? Are you eating? Do you have suicidal thoughts? Have you planned? It would be almost 5 or 6 questions.
Check.
And it would feel as though it was more of a risk assessment for their side of things rather than what's going on? How can we help you with this internal stuff in there or in your body? How can we help you? And that also, unfortunately, goes for the same when you come out. Because when you come out, you might eventually get settled into an area, but not everybody suddenly comes out and their life is smooth and they've got roots.
Yeah.
So you get on a list and you might get some counselling or some therapy but you'll have an 18-month waiting list. People are dying in those 18 months, and that's the truth of it, because it's, and I don't mean to say that to shock, but I've seen it and heard it and lost far too many people as a result of that, because the pain of trying to live without the substances and there not being enough treatment to help that. And I was lucky because I started getting involved in 12-step recovery and I had meetings and I had a sponsor and I had this whole community of support around me. But not everybody who struggles with their mental health has got that. So, so
you were lucky in that sense.
And even harder.
Even harder, yeah.
But what you did mention earlier that did help you, or that you found whilst you were inside is breath work and yoga. Talk to us through that. Was that with the Prison Phoenix Trust?
Yeah,
okay.
It was. And I think that what that gave me was that I'd been introduced to it before in that first 7 years when I managed to experience being free from all my substances. And in that time, I'd won a Winston Churchill Award, and I'd gone and lived in ashrams in India and traveled around California. And I'd had this incredible experience where I'd had this awakening of my spirit. And because I'd abandoned myself by using drugs again and almost forgotten about it, what they gave me, they sent me in books and CDs, and you could borrow the little CD box in your cell and listen to this sequence of meditations. And what it gave me was, oh, okay, just because I'm in this limited space with a locked door doesn't mean that I can't explore how I can maybe experience freedom on my own. And I just played with that, and I stayed curious, and it was the beginning of a journey for me where I just gently realized that, okay, because we are a lot more resourced than we give ourselves credit for.
Especially inside.
Exactly. But it's because the majority of us, when we end up there, we don't have the best belief system about ourselves or confidence or esteem or any of that stuff. It's usually our batteries are right low. And so what they did was start allowing me to realize, you know what, you're stronger than you think. You have got courage. You've got some drive. You've got some things which are free inside of you, i.e. breath work is free. It can really, really help the terrain of our mental unrest if we do a few sequences of breath work or learn how to be able to find little moments of being quiet. And then the yoga, for me, I'm a big fan of anything that's somatic, whether or not it's dance or gym or, you know, using the power of our bodies.
Movement.
Yeah, we all need to move our bodies.
I mean, breath work is even more important now scientifically, which I figured out. It actually clears your body. Like, it's one of the most powerful way of clearing the toxins just by breathing.
Yeah.
Which is so fascinating when you think about how limited we are in there and how we actually have that. We have the ability to literally clear our bodies even better than somebody who didn't know that out here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just fascinating. It's amazing how you figured that out on your own with struggling.
Yeah, I do remember going to the library as well and looking for other books and starting to explore and understand about neurotransmitters and what was going on. I think I geeked out a little bit about the biology.
I mean, I feel like I'm entering a bit of a geeky...
Do it.
Just by reading certain things.
It's fascinating.
Keep us posted.
Yeah. And actually, when you look at the majority of people, and I don't just mean people with lived experience of criminal justice or homelessness, addiction, you know, mental health, but the majority of human beings, we're breathing from our sort of like limited chest. You know, a sympathetic, what is known as in the nervous system, is that fight or flight.
Yeah.
Because we're scrolling, we're rushing, we're on a rev, we've got stuff to do, our minds are quite active. And what breath work does is it helps you to learn how to bring your breath more into the deeper parts of your body. Because we should be breathing this way, like babies. When you see babies breathing, they breathe sort of like horizontally. And we're breathing like that.
From the chest.
Yeah.
Just for people that are not watching this right now.
Yeah, from the chest. I'm doing the movements, everybody.
So then with this newfound, you know, way of living or adapting your lifestyle with the breathing, how does this translate in terms of like bettering yourself in your environment, contributing to release? How does that support it? Well,
I think one thing led to another, and it had this ripple effect of realizing that, and this speaks to other people who might be inside or coming outside, is that we all have qualities and gifts that we have no idea with what is possible if it's channeled in the right way.
Big facts.
And I'm really passionate about the fact that we are all unique. We're all individual. Some people are more creative with words or their body or their mind, or some people are really good with mathematics or systems or whatever. And so instead of realizing that the things that used to frighten me, I used to get excited with and cause me to be dangerous, I started using that more in terms of personal development. I thought, okay, I need to learn how to stretch to the edges of my comfort zone in other ways, in terms of looking for work, and because certain things would scare me and I go, oh, I can't do that. That's out of my comfort zone. And so I started channeling that in the right way. So I went into voluntary work, and then I started doing some communication stuff, and then I started working for a women's charity, and every time I'd get to a new edge of comfort zone, I'd think, oh, I'd feel like an imposter, and I'd get all the things that we all get. We're human beings. But so I tried to use that in the right way, and I still do today.
That's dope, isn't it?
I think it's important, and for people listening to have some tools if they're struggling, and to get involved with this as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing it all.
So then obviously, so you're pushing the barriers, you're pushing yourself, going out of your comfort zone. In this moment of progression and moving forward, has your mindset changed in terms of your recovery? And if so, what's changed it? But what does navigating that life after prison look like?
This particular chapter, it's more about being in business. Coming along to this, things like this, feels like a new edge, because, you guys are videoing it, and not being dictated by stigma, and being in the business world, whereas I used to try and keep this side of my past so hidden and secret. Shame, fear of judgment, all of those things that I'm sure a lot of people do. But in certain spaces, it becomes safe. And then I realized that actually it's an important message for me to sometimes share, because addiction doesn't discriminate. No. And in my opinion, not everybody in prison comes from certain backgrounds. There's a whole host of people from all walks of life that have come there for all matters of reasons. Usually there's, some semblance of discord going on.
Yeah.
But does that mean that they're morally bad, or that
I don't think so.
They need different help and interventions and insight or education?
Or support.
Or a bit of love, or a bit of hope,
Hope's a big thing. I found hope inside. I think, not let me say hope, but I think me and the lads that I was around or surround myself with would try to be positive to one another and try to be hopeful and think of the positive outcomes, and try to be, like people used to say, how are you lot smiling or laughing while we're inside? But what we're going to do, be even more depressed or even more sad in a place that's already sad and depressing. So
I think we can also both relate to, the fear of being judged, and, this goes out everywhere. So, and we are supporting people that have been in these journeys with all complex problems and needs and journeys, and it is a brave thing for you to do, and it is going to help a lot of people, and a lot of people listening will really appreciate this conversation. So thank you for being brave and opening up, and we're grateful for everyone that comes on and does that, because it is a lot, and you have to tap into something that you are possibly going to be judged for and criticized for, and some people really don't understand it all.
No. And I think these conversations are important. I thank you guys for doing the work that you do. Is that this is a resource that's available to people that they can tap into, not just when they're inside, but when they're outside.
But for our guests as well, because we don't sit here talking about our journeys, it's quite different sometimes. Yeah. But like we have it too. Like, do you know what I mean? We are sitting on the same sofas. We're just not sharing our exact journeys. But yeah, we're with you.
But there is an episode. I've heard your episode.
But like, it just made me want to say that because, you know, people share their journeys and they're vulnerable, like being vulnerable and open and sitting on the other side of the sofa and doing that. And I don't know, it just felt like I wanted and needed to say that. So yeah.
But there's a lot of strength in being vulnerable too.
Yeah.
That 100%. Is a superpower.
Facts.
You know, it's such a superpower. And here lies the problem, is that the majority of us are wired up to think we need to armor up in life because that's our safe space, isn't it? And it's not until you realize that it's vulnerability that connects us. It's that ability to be able to open up and go, I'm struggling or I need help. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's a superpower.
Big facts.
Yeah.
You mentioned business earlier.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your organization.
So I work in the private capacity after years of working for charities, and I'm still involved in charities, hence the Prison Phoenix Trust, and I'm still really passionate about other charities. But what my business does is it provides a service for people who can't go to rehab. They might need to still run their business or get on with their lives. And I bring everything that I've learned into their home. And I do this whole sort of 360 wraparound service with coaching and yoga and meditation and breathwork and nutrition and helping them with all of their addiction. So it's predominantly helping them with their addiction, whether or not that's alcohol and or drugs.
So this is Recalibrate Recovery. That's your business.
Yeah.
So you do every part of this? Is it just you yourself?
No. I have other coaches that work for me,
Amazing.
therapists, practitioners, other services as well.
And people come to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, they find you.
People come to me. I do work for other organizations doing what I do as well.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Can I just say quickly, that I think this is a great example of, before I ask the question, let me ask you this. Do you consider yourself as someone that's still in recovery?
I think that the terminology, much like a lot of people, I say that I'm in recovery, but I feel like I am not dictated by my past.
Okay.
So I use that as a sort of alchemy to go, I'm free from that, but I don't forget where I come from.
Okay.
Mainly because I've had the experience of having a chunk of time of being away from my substances and thinking that a cheeky cocktail or a little drink will be okay. And that led me back to the drugs. So that's why I go, I always want to be teachable. I always want to be forever learning. And I think that keeps it fresh and has an element of humility.
No, I appreciate that because I think this is a great example of how someone who is still, navigating the world of recovery or the world whilst in recovery can still be championing others, supporting others and running a business too. Great example that is possible, and I just wanted to take a moment to highlight that for everyone else that's listening and for yourself too, because I know from my experience of working with people or interacting with people who are in recovery or battling addiction, that in its own self is enormous. So going through that and running an organization and supporting others and doing things is monumental. So I just wanted to, take a moment to acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask you, for somebody that's been through it and, on the journey you are on right now, what support do you think needs to be in place for people?
More services where people can explore and have a level of autonomy and I get that this is dictated often financially, but I met artists and creatives and people who were incredibly talented when I was inside. And I know there's some beautiful organizations that are out there. It's what can we put in place? And what I would say to anybody is explore this. Now we've got the internet. We've got, we can even probably chat GPT or do a little search on what's in my area or what can I access online to help me with ... whether or not it's poetry or whatever physical stuff that they want to explore. But there are, there's still some good grassroots organizations that are out there, and maybe even getting in touch with Clinks or Forward Trust or, one of these other organizations that probably can signpost and give a bit more information about what's in somebody's area.
And more investment.
More investment.
That's the big...
Yeah, but that's a whole nother... Again, a whole nother conversation.
We could tangent a few times in today's episode. But Lisa, thank you so much. I also wanted to just ask what your message is to people who are struggling with addiction, maybe inside a prison or leaving prison would be.
Is don't be so dictated by your addiction that defines the whole of you. Sometimes it's useful to understand what addiction means, but channel it in the right way, because I see other people who might be quite driven or in the category of addicts, but they've just channeled it in terms of something that is a physical challenge, or they've got into extreme sports or business or entrepreneurial endeavors, and I would say don't give up on that part of you. Use that in a way in which you can explore. Use that fear, excitement stuff into being brave, into loving yourself. And I think that's the other thing, is that you need to be your own champion. Yes, it's important to find connections and collaborations and that level of support, but it does kind of start with us. And what I can never do for somebody else if I'm living with them or I'm doing this wraparound support is I still say to them, I'm not with you in those hours when you're trying to get off to sleep. So gatekeep your mind. If your mind goes into doom and fear and self-doubt, have that 3-second or 5-second rule where you go, no, I'm going to choose to have a different message. I want to choose to think differently about myself. Be daring in that. Because I do believe that we have this power of being able to turn that around, and whether or not people have a spiritual belief that's attached to that. Some people who use prayer or meditation or other things that can help them. But even if you don't, you still got the power to go, I'm going to try and choose to think differently about this.
That's right. Tap into that power.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
That's all right.
Yeah. Something we like to do on Life After Prison Network is signpost organizations that can support people, whether inside or outside the prison. I know you mentioned a couple, but I wanted to give you the chance now to really shine the light or spotlight a couple that really supported you.
Yeah. Well, for me, definitely the Prison Phoenix Trust really, really supported me. But I also had a lot of support from women's centres. And for me, that was Nelson Trust. I think that Nelson Trust is predominantly around the West Country, but I know that in London you've got Working Chance, and you've got the one that helps with acting. What's that one called? Clean Break. Clean Break.
Thanks, producer.
Yeah.
Love you.
Clean Break. And Working Chance. There's a lot of organisations that can help people.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, though.
Yeah, and I got involved in lived experience groups, whether or not it's the National Expert Citizens Group or they have a new one, Clearo, which is, I don't know all the initials of, but I know LE is the lived experience part of it. And Revolving Doors and all of those, because then that's a channel. That's a channel. Instead of being able to ask yourself, oh, why me? We can go, okay, what can I do with this?
That's right. Thanks for mentioning those. I'm just going to highlight a couple more. You did mention earlier Forward Trust briefly, who offer substance misuse and mental health services to people inside and also those leaving prison, by also integrating wellness within a program. So check them out. And another one is Kaleidoscope, who are based in Wales and the Wirral, who blend harm reductive approaches with detox and offer housing support and much more. So if these organizations can support you, check them out, and they'll be in our show notes.
Question time.
Yes.
We asked you guys, what makes you feel empowered? And before I read out some of these, I wanted to ask you, Zach.
Good question.
What makes you feel empowered?
We were just talking about tapping into your power, right? So what makes me feel empowered is when you see, for example, when I see something like the fruits of my labor. So for example, if I put a plan together and then that plan comes to fruition and you're seeing it happen like in front of you, it's really amazing. Or you go into like a meeting and the result of that meeting sounding great, you know, that gives me that empowerment to know that, yeah, I can do this.
That is very empowering.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah.
I like that.
What about you though? Don't skip. You see that?
Wait,
tried it.
Wait, we'll come to me and Lisa. Let's read out what you guys have said. So someone said, when someone believes in me. I think that's really important.
Yeah. That's crucial.
Especially when you're not in a position to do it yourself or like feel that yourself.
Yeah.
That validation, you know, it is important.
It's powerful, you know, if you got someone else saying, but I know you can do it. Like
what you said earlier about what you might have needed at that point. Somebody else saying, you know, I did it, you got this.
Yeah.
You can do it too.
And you don't forget those people, do you? You never forget those people who were your cheerleaders when you didn't believe in yourself.
Facts.
Yeah. Oh, you really, you never do.
Big
you
facts.
never forget them. And then you pass it on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I have people helping me now who tell me they're helping me because they were helped.
Yeah.
You know? And
there's a gift in being kind and giving somebody a bit of hope and that doesn't cost us anything, does it?
That's empowering in its own self.
That's empowering in itself. Yeah.
Someone else said, getting my to-do list done.
Yeah.
That's really therapeutic, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you tick that off.
Mine never ends. Always add stuff to it.
True. And somebody else said, helping people, especially offenders who need to know anything is possible in life after prison. That's special. Anything
facts.
is possible.
Yeah.
Big
In
facts.
life after prison,
Yeah.
you just gotta believe.
That's right.
Lisa, what about you?
Same with those two for sure. But I also think there's something, so that there's another organization and I'll try and get their information, but they do things like mountain walks.
Okay.
For people, not just in recovery, mental health, got a past. And I think it's sometimes setting yourself a goal.
A challenge
that you think, ooh, this feels a little bit scary. And then you do it.
And then completing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having little goals to achieve.
Love
I
that.
like that.
The excitement
Yeah.
that came out of you right there.
Yeah.
And where to channel that.
Yeah.
I know you're going to ask me again.
I'm just casually waiting.
I feel like I'm definitely on the same vibe with achieving things. So I really do believe that when you achieve something, your goal, and it's accomplished and you do it, it just naturally empowers you. And it could be with anything. Like I get it with my fitness. I get it with, you know, things that I know I can't do, but I'm going to work out how to get there and then I'm going to do it.
That's right.
It is empowering because you believe in yourself. And when you believe in yourself, you do it more.
That's right.
And more. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah,
I almost think that there's something about if you have to really work towards something, it's even more empowering.
Yeah.
And when I first came out of this rehab that I was in, I remember seeing this handstands classes and I thought, oh, wow, I really want to learn how to be able to do that. And the trainer at the time, he said, well, it might take you a few years to get the ligaments to be able to work in that way. Now, the old me was like, unless it was instant gratification, I'm not interested. So I think there's something about if you have to really work towards it, you get the sort of dopamine hits or the satisfactions of each level of learning as well.
So basically, the bigger you dream, the better.
Yeah.
That's right.
I love that.
Dream
Yeah,
big.
and dream big. Please continue getting in touch with us. We love hearing from you. We love your contributions and your comments. So please keep them coming. You can do this by DMing us on Instagram and X at After Prison Pod. You can also on TikTok get at us at Life After Prison Pod. And don't forget, you can email us at podcasts@prison.radio. That's podcasts@prison.radio. And if you're listening inside, you can get in touch with us during the usual way, and we'll give you the contact number at the end.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been incredible.
I've really enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man.
And
Tap into your power.
it's happened to your power.
Yeah.
We're leaving you with that. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.